On top of playing Vanguard, I do play a lot of other games, and not just card games. And one of my favorite video game franchises is Fire Emblem. Today, we'll be talking about something a little bit different than what I usually post. It's going to be about the Fire Emblem TCG called Fire Emblem Cipher. And what's a better way to introduce it than with a little trailer? So as you guys saw, that was the trailer for the Fire Emblem TCG called Fire Emblem Cipher. It showed you a basic look of the cards and what they look like, and it sort of hyped it up to be something amazing. So this card game is being produced by Nintendo, and that's, well, it's not the first time that they made a card game, as they did make a card game, Fire Emblem card game before, but it wasn't exactly successful and it didn't go out of Japan at all. What we're hoping is that this card game will be released outside of Japan, but for now the hopes aren't too high. But with this video, I'm trying to promote this card game so we can get it to be popular enough to be out in the West. So exactly a week ago, there was a stream that showed off how the game works and a lot of other aspects of it. And today, I'll be going into that game. So first off, I'm going to tell you how the board works. So as you can see on this image, we can see that we have our battlefield area, which consists of the front line and the rear guard. We have the orb area, which I will go into later. We have the support area, the deck, and the discard pile, which are all standard except for the support area, but I think Vanguard players will recognize it pretty soon once I go into it. And finally we have the bond area. Now looking at this field, it doesn't really make much sense right now, but by the end of this video you'll understand it all, and I'm pretty sure you'll know how to play the game. So the first point that we have to start at to understand the game is the layout of the cards. Take this Chrome card for example. We can see a variety of stats, numbers, and everything on this card, but let's go into it a little bit. On the top left corner we can see a number, which basically says the cost that you need to pay in order to play this card onto the battlefield. Now, in Fire Emblem Cipher, you only have monster cards just like Vanguard. No spells, no traps, nothing, just monsters, or as we can call it, units. So now you can see in the top left corner there is the cost, and then there is a little circle there, which says promotion cost, and I will show a card after this, which has a promotion cost like that and exactly what that promotion cost is. Now we can see in the center we have the skills, just like every other card would have. We have the attacking power, which is 40 in Chrome's case, and then we have the range, which I will go into after. Next up we have the class of the unit, which is rather important in this game, and then we have the support power, which I'll also go into after. Finally we have the name, and then there is a little thing that wasn't circled, which says if this unit is promoted or unpromoted, and in this card's case, it is not promoted. So here's how the game works when you start. You have a 50 card deck which consists of only units, and right now there are two colors. Blue, which stands for Awakening, and red, which is basically from the games that Marth came from the first Fire Emblem. Now you can have a mixed deck, but it's more suggested to use just a monocolored deck for now. And for the sake of this little tutorial, we're going to be talking about just monocolored decks. So when you begin the game, you have your deck of 50 cards, and from those 50 cards you choose one card, which is your Lord. And that Lord can be anything, but I'm pretty sure that the sort of condition is going to be that it has to be an unpromoted unit. So you can choose any card, but I'm pretty sure that they're going to say it has to be unpromoted. And you place it face down on your battlefield on the front line. Then, just like in every other card game, you decide who goes first by either rock, paper, scissors, by rolling a dice, flipping a coin, whatever. Next up, you draw 6 cards, and then you can choose to mulligan. But if you do mulligan, you have to put your entire hand back into the deck, shuffle, and draw 6 again. After you've done that, you take the top 5 cards of your deck and you place them face down into the bond area, which we said earlier. Now what these 5 bond cards are they're basically your life. Because every time your Lord gets hit, you have to draw one of those bond cards, and when you cannot draw anymore, you lose. Now here's how the turns work in this card game. First off, we have the opening phase, which is where you stand all your units or untap your units and you draw a card. Next up, we have the bond phase, where you pick one card from your hand and you place it into the bond zone, which is basically like a mana zone. So you use your unit cards as your mana. Next up, we have the deployment phase, which is where you can play your cards and also do class change. How class change works is that if you have an unpromoted unit, you can choose a card that is the promoted version of that unit, as you see in the picture here, and you can place it on top. If you play card 5 Vanguard, then this is basically like a ride. Another thing that I must mention about class change is that you remember when we mentioned the promotion cost? When you have a unpromoted unit and you have its promoted form in your hand, instead of paying the cost that it says on the very top left, you can instead pay the promotion cost. So you only need like 2 bonds, for example, instead of 3 to class change. And this new promoted unit will have obviously better stats, better skills. It's simply an upgrade, just like in the Fire Emblem games. Next up, we have the action phase, where you can attack, move, and use skills. Now, how attacking works is that you must attack the unit in front of you. Now, if you have 1 range, you will only attack the unit right in front of you. But if you have, for example, range 2, like the character that we see on the screen now, then you can attack by 2 spaces in front of you. And it is unsure yet, we do not know yet, just from the news that we have so far, but it is assumed that after you attack, you would tap your card. Also, there is the move mechanic, where you can move your cards back and forth, but we're not sure if you can move them left and right, but I would assume so, that you can by 1 step. It is assumed. And it is also assumed that after you perform a move, you tap your card as well. Looking at photos from people trying out the game, it seems like you would tap your card after you have used a skill as well, but we're not too sure about that one just yet. And finally, you have the end phase, just like in every card game, and that's basically where your turn ends and your opponent's turn begins. Now let me go a little bit into the deployment phase, which is where you play your cards and you do class change. How bonds work is that simply you put them, usually it seems from the gameplay that we've seen so far that you put them in tapped onto the field or rested, and then when you want to play a card, let's say you have 3 blue bonds, and you have bonds, units in your field that cost 1, and then you have another card that costs 2. So now you can play those cards, but you don't have to do anything with your bonds. You don't have to tap them or counterblast them, flip them, or anything like that. You just place them, but it has to equal the amounts that you have of bonds or less. You do not have to use all your bonds in 1 turn, but you cannot go over that amount. And now the other phase that really has to be seen into is the action phase. So I already explained how the battles work and how range works in the action phase. But 2 more mechanics should be described are Godspeed Evasion and Critical Strike. Now how Critical Strike works is that when your unit attacks, you may discard an exact copy of that card, and then the attacking power of that card will double. And Godspeed Evasion is that when you are being attacked, your unit is being attacked, you can discard an identical copy to perfectly defend against that attack. Sort of like a perfect shield in Vanguard. Now, we don't really know how damage taking works just yet, but what we assume is that when you destroy an opponent's unit that is not their lord, they simply go to the discard pile. But when you attack their lord, then instead of it being destroyed, they have to take a bond card. So it sort of works like a Vanguard in Card Fight Vanguard. Instead of being destroyed, you just take damage. Now how the actual battles work is that when you attack, you have to have either identical or higher power than the defending unit in order for the attack to hit. Just like in Card Fight Vanguard. And another mechanic that we're not too sure how it works just yet is the support mechanic. Now it is assumed that when you attack, you check the top card and you put it into the support area, which we saw earlier. And now you look at the support power of the card that was put into the support area and you add it onto the attacking unit. But we're not sure if you only do this once per battle phase or is it every single attack. Although I would assume it's once per battle phase, otherwise you're going to deck out way too easy. Another mechanic is March. Now, when your entire front line is wiped out on your battlefield, you have no choice, you must promote all your back row to the front. So all your rear guards must come out to the front. There is no choice. And this does not cost anything. Now another thing that we've noticed with some of the cards is that they mention sort of like a flipping in their skills. So we would assume that you have to flip the bonds to pay for these skills. And that is basically how the entire game works. It's not really all that hard when you sort of break it down and go into it in detail. But obviously there are only a few cards that have been translated so far, so we don't really know everything about the game just yet. And we really need to have all these cards translated to go into the game with more depth. But for now, those are the basics, and they do not seem all that hard when you compare it to some other card games. The 2 cards that we have translated for now are, one is Olivia, and her skill, we can see in this picture, is, well, she has measly stats. She has 20 attacking power, 10 supporting power, which is not all that amazing when you compare it to some of the other cards, like the one we saw in the trailer, that awesome Great Lord Lucina. Now, we can see that her skill seems to say that you have to rest her and flip 2 cards, and then you can choose one of your units that are already attacked and let them attack again. So I'm assuming that this flipping symbol means you have to flip 2 bonds, but I'm not sure if you would unflip them then at the end of the turn, or do they stay flipped like in Cardfight Vanguard. Now, another card that was translated roughly, so we're not too sure about this translation just yet, is a Tharja card, which we saw in the trailer. Now, what this skill seems to say is that when you use the skill, your opponent has to choose a card in your hand, and then he chooses the card and you place it into the support area. So this is why I'm assuming that you don't check for a support card every time you attack. I would assume that it's only once per battle phase, so then if you have another support card that turn, you get 2 supporting powers. So it's sort of like Tharja makes the opponent give you a bonus. Now, if you're interested in this card game, no worries, because you can pre-order it. It's already up for pre-order on Amy, but the trick is, this card game so far is only in Japanese, as well. We don't know if it's going to be popular enough to reach the Western audience. But I do encourage you to try it out, get the trial deck at least, because there are 2 trial decks so far, one for Awakening and one for the first Fire Emblem with Marth. And basically they range at about $10 on Amy, and I myself got some. And there's also a booster set which combines these 2 games, and you have 16 packs per box and 10 cards per pack, and the price is about $40 per box, so it's pretty reasonable. But obviously these cards are in Japanese, so we will need translators, and I really hope we do get some that can help us sort of bring light to this game, because I'm really excited for it and I can't wait to play it myself. And it just seems to be made quite well. Like the way that the game works really reminisces the gameplay of Fire Emblem. So in the description you will find links to pre-order both of the trial decks. You can either pre-order them as a 1-pack or as a pack of 6, just like in Vanguard, but I guess most people will just go for the 1. And you can also pre-order the boxes of the first set, and all of this will be releasing on June 25th alongside Fire Emblem If, the new game, but only in Japan. The game is coming out in 2016 for us, the English audience. Also in the description you will find a link to the stream, which is about 50 minutes, where you can find the trailer and all the mechanics that I talked about today, but the trick is that it's all in Japanese, so you need to understand a little bit. Finally, I will leave a link for Serene's Forest, the article where this whole card game is being digged into, and I'm also following that very closely, and that's where I'm getting a lot of this news from, and the translated cards and everything. So a big thank you to Serene's Forest for providing all this information and keeping us updated with everything. It's a huge thank you, and I hope you keep doing it. But before we end just here, there were still some things in the stream that I feel I should cover quickly in this video. One of the things is that they said about the upcoming sets, and the next set in the card game will be based on Fire Emblem If. And what it seems like, there's a lot of cards that, like, there's 2 cards that match into one art, which kind of reminds me another attribute of Cardfight Vanguard. And the 3rd set that they're planning to make will be Path of Radiance, which is where the main character was Ike, where he became basically famous from Smash Bros. Other than that, they spent a huge deal of the stream concentrating on the art, as there are artists that made Full Metal Panic, or Daisuke Izuka, who made the ever so famous Dragonic Overlord The End, and a lot of the Overlords, and the Blauraichen and everything, and X-Falcon and all these cards in Vanguard, so it's really nice to see him in this card game as well, making even more amazing art. And that basically wraps the video up. So tell me guys, what do you think of this card game? Is it too hard? Do you still have questions? Well, I think we all have questions, but is there anything that I didn't explain well enough in this video that you think I should still go into? If you want, I can just go into it in the comments. But do you guys want me to still make a few videos when we have more news about this? And obviously I will be making openings of the cards when they release, because I'm very hyped for this game, and I hope this video sort of managed to bring new light onto this game as well for you guys. So tell me what you guys thought. Did you enjoy this little presentation? Do not worry, for those of you that avidly follow me, I'm not going away from Vanguard. This is just a little side video. And also, happy birthday Fire Emblem! Today is the 20th of April, which marks the 25th anniversary of the Fire Emblem franchise, and also Cena's birthday. So that is it guys. Like I said, leave comments, tell me what you guys thought. I'm really excited for this game, and I hope I can get you guys excited as well. So, as always, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.